God, this was a great show.
It was good,
I'm
man.
calling it.
It was good.
It's a great show. I learned a lot. We laughed. We cried. Okay, well, we laughed a little.
I might cry when I go back and listen to what I said.
Well, there you go. You sounded smarter than you are. So,
well, thank God for that.
Do you know what today is?
Go for broke.
Okay, you're in it now. Go for broke.
What's that?
Yeah.
Please, fun don't.
Look, I'm gonna go for broke.
I'm gonna go for broke.
It's the weekend.
It's the weekend.
And now I'm completely broke.
No, you misunderstand it.
What I mean is...
Just go for it.
ready to go for broke.
Showtime, everyone!
Hey, everybody, it is Chasing Parts Cars. It's Derek Beck, Alex Holt joining me as well via Zoom. And you got those fancy headphones on again, man.
So do you.
Mine, I don't know, yours are pretty sweet. Are you wearing JL Audio or JBL? What are you wearing?
JBLs.
Yeah. Mine are AKGs. But
You're fancy. They got gold on them.
they are.
Don't let him fool you. Don't let Derek fool you. He has gold on his headphones.
I will say my buddy Jesse Stevens, who's a coworker of mine. I've known Jesse for 20-some years. This is the only brand of studio headphones that he will wear. And I was always kind of anti-AKG because I thought they were too fancy. And in my old age, I love these headphones. They are awesome. They're not noise canceling or anything like that. They just sound good. Just full. So, well, how you been, man? It's last weekend was Mother's Day. We weren't able to catch up. There were a lot of reasons. There's always a lot of reasons why. I've been in the middle of selling our house in North Platte, and we finally did that this past week. So we sold our house, and we put in an offer on the house we wanted within like an hour of that all going down, and it was accepted about 2 hours later than that. So within, 6 hours, we were homeless and then had another house. So kind of cool. We were really happy.
Congratulations. House has everything you want in it.
Yeah, it's done. I don't have to do anything to it. It's move-in ready. That is the perfect house for Derek. Don't have to do anything.
You say that now.
Knocking on wood.
And then within a month or two, I think this wall needs painted. I think we could move this. I think we need to redo the countertops. I think we need to do this. And I know, yeah. Hey, I know how it goes. We thought our house was move-in ready, and then we're still doing projects. So.
Well, but your project, and I'm doing this ass backwards today by starting with this, but you've been working on your basement the last couple days, and it looks good. You were showing me some pictures because you got drowned last year in the flood, and it's taken this long to put it all back together. But I think it looks better than it did originally, man. I think you did a great job.
It took a long time, and time is the problem with a lot of that. And again, it's one of those things where suddenly we find a lot of time to do some things that we never had time to do. So I guess that's one good part about all this. But I've been able to get some projects done. We got carpet put down finally, which
did you do that yourself?
I did not. I don't like carpet.
Okay. I didn't know because it looked really good. No offense. I'm like, wonder if he did that himself or not.
I did not. The tile, yes, but not the carpet. So that's kind of where that is with the carpet. And so now we've just got other projects in the basement to do. We use our basement a lot is really the thing there. So it needs to be something of a livable space, and it hasn't been. So we are glad to be rolling on that project.
That's awesome. Well, we have a lot to get to. We'll talk more DIY and backyard barbecues because I got my new grill since we last talked too. And
I want to hear all about it.
So
you've sent me some Snapchats. I want to see how that's going.
It's going good here so far. So we'll talk about that. You've been wanting to dive into country music bad, like really dive into it. So I think we'll spend most of our time probably maybe on that topic today, but we always talk sports in our A through D. So let's get right to that. There's no sports really happening, but there's a lot to talk about when it comes to sports. The NSAA, they sent out an update Well, as we talked, they sent it out yesterday. So they sent it out on Wednesday, basically kind of outlining the requirements for the summer conditioning and all that kind of stuff. So they're saying basically a lot of things that we thought they were going to say. Maintain social distance of 6 feet, gatherings of 10 or less students. Sessions can include weightlifting, so the schools will be open a little bit. So weightlifting, running, exercise designed to promote physical fitness is what they are saying. And then sports-specific drills are saying you can't do that, and sports-specific equipment can't be used either. So I think there's a lot of wiggle room. I was trying to get Jay Beller with the NSAA on the podcast with us. I think we'll be able to do that next week, it sounds like. We just weren't able to confirm a time before we needed to do it here today. But I guess your thoughts, I mean, I guess it's really good to see the schools at least being able to open for some of these kids, although activities are going to be pretty slim.
Conditioning good. Sometimes it's just you got to get a basketball in kids' hands. You got to get a golf club in kids' hands. You got to get volleyballs in their hands. So not being able to use sports-specific equipment that's going to put a lot on the kids. They got to do it themselves. And so hopefully they can rise to the challenge and do that. But heck yeah, it's good that the schools are going to be open. I'll tell you, we miss the kids. We miss seeing them. We miss being around them. And I know believe it or not, kids miss school. Any kid that you talk to, they actually have missed school quite a bit. So, it's good to get kids back in the building. It's going to be a pain in the neck, though, 10 kids at a time, moving in the weight room. And we've had sessions of 20, 30, 40, 50 kids, at a time. And now we're talking 10 kids at a time. It's not as much time as you would normally get. And it's a pain in the neck, but at least you'll get to see them and get some work done that way.
And statewide, the governor came out earlier this week and kind of opened a window. I don't know that he opened the door for baseball and softball. Basically, he said that teams can start doing practices, although you still got to maintain all this social distance we just talked about. But they can start practicing on June 1st, and that there could actually be games played in Nebraska by June 18th. Although spectator-wise, they're not saying 0 spectators, but they're saying immediate family only, and they will not use bleachers. You got to bring your own seating and no concessions. But, I mean, I think this is probably good news a little bit, just to, again, kind of what we were just talking about, at least kind of ease back into something at this point. At least we have a plan, even if it changes, I guess. And so far, everything has always changed, whatever we said was going to happen.
It'd be nice to get something going. I mean, you keep seeing cancellations and things moving, and we'll get into that a little bit, but it'll be nice to see things start to happen. And we'll touch on this a little bit, but this Sunday, hopefully things happen. We have NASCAR.
You said it before I said it. I thought I was going to have to bring it up. I didn't want to. I wanted golf. You to.
We have golf. We have NASCAR. The Ricky Fowler and Matthew Wolf and Dustin Johnson. And I knew I was going to forget Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, McIlroy.
Skins game. And I'm not going to lie. I am very excited. My basement is ready for that.
How many TVs do you have in your basement? 3?
I have 3 TVs in my basement, and there will be my wife and my child and I, and
a TV for everybody. So will you have cartoons on one of those TVs for Matt?
I'm gonna be honest with you. With golf on, he won't need cartoons. This kid is obsessed with golf. I think he might be more excited about, and he's not even 2, but he will be very excited that there is live golf on TV. And I'm not kidding about that. I'm not, this isn't the golf coach dad coming out. This kid is obsessed with golf, maybe more than I am. So
I don't know if you know this, but your wife, Hillary, she sends me Snapchats all the time when you're out of Matt watching golf on the television. And you're 100% right. For people that don't believe Alex, this little guy will just stand in front of the TV and just stare at whoever has got a golf club in his hands. It's awesome.
Yeah, the kid just loves golf, and as a parent, the kids are into whatever you're into, but I'm kind of blown away by it. I'm just kind of blown away by how much the kid loves watching golf, playing golf, and being around it. So I think it'll be a lot of fun in the house to have some live golf on. It's been a couple months, so
yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
Now, is that a Saturday, Sunday? That's 2-day deal, right? Or is it 3?
No, it's just Sunday. It's just Sunday. Just 18 holes deal, but it'll be nice to have some live golf. It'll be nice to have something going on, and then we can touch on Darlington too. It'll be fun to get NASCAR going too.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited. I don't know what to do because I think they're both on. Basically, I think the golf starts before the NASCAR, but I think NASCAR is supposed to be rolling by like 2:30 in the afternoon or something like that. But they've had some different rules that they've had to put into place for that as well. So they're going to race Darlington on Sunday and again on Tuesday. So they're going to race there twice, and then next week they're going to race at Charlotte on Sunday, and then they're going to race at Charlotte again on Tuesday. So they're going to have 4 races, 2 racetracks, and they're going to do it within days apart of each other. The Tuesday races will all be at night, and they'll be like half the distance of whatever the Sunday race was. So
I thought it was Wednesday. I'm gonna look that up.
Maybe it is. It's Tuesday or Wednesday. So
I thought it was Wednesdays, but either way, yeah, it'll be kind of nice to get something going. And I think that might just be, it is Wednesdays.
Okay.
I think that might be just what we need. You see a few things happening because you keep hearing about things getting pushed off and not happening. And it might be good just to get some things under the belt and give it a couple weeks and see if people aren't getting sick, that we can actually have some live sports and some live events and then start to get some things back together a little bit. Of course, doing it safely and following as much as you can, but we got to get some stuff back going.
So back to the high school side of things, it's Chasing Parts Cars, Derek Beck, Alex Hall. And we should mention, not only available on Podbean right now, but now we are also available on Apple Podcasts. So if you have an iPhone, you can go to Podcasts. Just in the search bar for podcasts, just type in Chasing Parts Cars. It'll come right up. You can listen, download to any of the episodes. Pretty cool. So I was glad that we could figure that out. And, of course, we're available on our Facebook page as well, Chasing Parts Cars NE on Facebook. Well, one other thing we should mention for sports here real quickly. Big Husker news this week. Noah Vedral leaving Nebraska. He graduated, so he is going to grad transfer to Rutgers, and he actually has 2 years of eligibility left.
Congratulations to him. Yeah, let's see. He went to Newman, Wahoo, Nebraska native, Noah Vedral. So good for him.
And I think Nebraska plays Rutgers both of the next 2 years. So interesting.
You gotta say that. I mean, you gotta feel like that it's good if he's going to get a playing opportunity. That's good for him.
I'd be willing to bet he starts. So immediately,
when you're behind Martinez and Luke McCaffrey, it's. I think that the team needed what he could bring at the time, and hopefully, Nebraska has some things in place now. But I want to talk about knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. Will Nebraska get to play a game in 2020? I see. University of California has already said they will likely not have classes in the fall. So no classes, I would assume no sports, right?
That's what the NCAA said, was that they will not have sports if students aren't on campus. Now, it'll be really interesting. It's to see how that goes. We'll see.
All right, well, let's move on. Let's talk backyards and barbecue a little bit. We were talking a little bit about your basement, so kind of explain what happened and then the remodel. This has been in the works for a little bit, but you mentioned the extra time. You got a lot done in the last couple of weeks.
So we had, and I mentioned this before in the podcast, we had water in August, and talking to previous owners and people, this hasn't, I have a pump in the basement. They said water doesn't happen in the it hasn't happened in the basement in 30 years or more. So pretty rare thing that happened. Of course, we had 14 and a half inches or something like that in the month of August. It's hard to think back to August even and what happened then with everything that's happened since then. But we had all that rain in August, and so we got water in our basement. We had standing water for a couple of days, not very much, inch or so, but enough to have to replace some drywall and some things like that, and had to take out our flooring. And so we settled on putting in some carpet. If it hasn't happened in 30 years, we felt like that would probably be okay. So we did that, and we built storage and then made a room into a storeroom, and have been working on the laundry room. And I'm holding off on doing anything in the bathroom because I don't know what I want to do with that yet. But we put in carpet, and we put some tile down around the fireplace. We have a fireplace downstairs. And so it has made this room. It's amazing what carpet does to the temperature of a room.
Right.
The basement was very cold, and I'm sitting in the basement right now, and I'm not cold.
I love it. So what else you been up to? You done anything outside? Your wife sent me a Snapchat. Looked like you were helping out your neighbor today.
Yeah, neighbor was is a older lady, and she had a saw out and was cutting down part of a tree. And I said, "Hey, I have a chainsaw. What's going to take you the next 2 hours is going to take me 3 minutes."
Right.
She said, "Oh, that'd be awesome." So I grabbed my chainsaw and went over there, and in 3 or 4 minutes I had, and it wasn't very big, but it was just growing up next to her shed, and cut it down, and it took 3 minutes. And so,
what a nice guy.
There you go. I said, she said, well, you didn't have to do that, and can I pay you? And I said, no, this was an excuse to use my chainsaw. So there you go.
I love it. Backyards and barbecues. It's Chasing Parked Cars, Derek and Alex. I mentioned I got a grill. I've been itching to get one of these. So I bought a Pit Boss pellet smoker. So first time out, I did what everybody probably does first time out. So I did a pork butt.
Good.
I killed it, man. It was really good. Really, it was falling apart. So I guess I did it right.
What kind of pellets did you use?
I had, because I had bought my son-in-law some pellets earlier this spring. So I was using the competition pellets. So, yeah, worked real good. What's the best pellet to use on a pork butt?
I have no idea.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You don't use pellets, so you would know.
No, I use apple wood. I like cherry. I like apple. I'll do a combination of apple and hickory quite a bit for pork.
Yeah, specifically. Well, it's pretty good. The rub I kind of mixed in. It was kind of a homebrew rub a little bit too. So a lot of seasoning. I don't think you can over season a pork butt. But mine was kind of sweet, a little mustard, honey I had in it. So it was pretty good. So I think I had it the first 3 days. I used it all 3 days. So I did the pork butt. Then I did a pizza because why not? That was actually amazing. I've heard people doing a pizza on a grill. I never had one. That was awesome. And then we've done some burgers and done some chicken, and it's awesome. So ribs is the next thing. We're going to do some ribs this weekend.
So I was thinking about what you said. You can't over season a pork butt, and that's true because you have surface area to total meat. You don't have nearly as much of your surface as you do on the meat on the inside. So
right.
It blends in nicely when you pull it. Ribs are a little bit different story because you have way more surface area than meat. So that's definitely, a meat where you pull back a little bit is ribs.
I've done my homework, done my research, and that's exactly what it said. So it said you can't. It is really hard to over season a pork butt or a brisket because you've got that outer crust, and it'll be fine. And low and slow. I think the one thing I've already learned, maybe take, and I didn't burn it, but I think mine was about a 6-hour smoke. I think I'm going to increase that. The next one, about the same size. So more smoke, more flavor. Love it. So it was good.
What temperature did you cook at?
What did we go at? 2 1/4. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
225.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect.
So, yep. All right. Well, you want to dig into this country music, man? I know you've been itching about it for a few weeks.
So this, I have to start off with this. I feel like I need to defend myself a little bit in the world of country music.
I have kind of thrown you under the bus a little bit. So
the first 4 episodes have been, hey, Alex, listen to this song.
I know you're going to hate it.
And mercilessly make fun of it. And to varying degrees. What I want to talk about is the positive end. There are songs I like. There's artists I like. There's new stuff I like. But I think it's important to talk about the sort of foundational pieces, at least. You could go way back with country music. I don't want to do that. But I at least want to talk about maybe what I'm listening for or what I like to some degree.
Yeah.
Because it's been a lot of me bitching about new country music.
Well, in fairness, I threw you some pretty crappy country music. So,
and I think it's only fitting at this point. Now we know what I don't like, to at least get some education on maybe the broader picture of country music and where specifically my taste, but yours too, sort of fits into that whole map, because C has been pretty far down and sort of a shortened segment of our show.
C has been for crappy country music so far.
And with the time that we have, because as we keep going on this show, hopefully in the fall, as we do this show, we're going to have a lot of sports to talk about.
Right.
And so we now have an opportunity to discuss country music. And so I don't. So here's what I want to talk about. Is you, after Tyson Havronik was on our show, you went on to his sort of renewed podcast, The Watchful Penguin, and he gave you an opportunity to talk about our podcast. And so I kind of felt bad. I didn't know he was renewing his.
I know. I didn't. I felt bad that we didn't ask him that question, but as I didn't know. So. But
Tyson Havronik, who was on our show last time, 2 weeks ago or so, has a podcast called The Watchful Penguin. So go look it up, add it to since you're adding us on podcasts, Apple Podcasts, go ahead and add that one. Listen to his to the interview with Derek, and I want to rehash that a little bit. Brought you on. So Derek is the programmer for all of the country stations for GI Family Radio and Hometown Family Radio, which is the rest of the West, basically up to or around North Platte. Am I correct on all of this?
Yeah, no, you got it. Yeah, I think our coverage goes to about Sydney and Broadwater to the west. So basically, you could hear a country station that I had a hand in programming from Seward to Sydney on I-80. So.
And that's true. My parents have made the trip several times, and they love listening to country's greatest hits. And so Saturday mornings when they've made the trip, they say between Seward and York, they'll pick up Country 96.
Yep.
So that's about, and it depends a little bit on weather and things like that. But that's right. So Seward to about Broadwater is you can hear a GI Family Radio station or a Hometown Family Radio station that Derek has probably programmed. So what was brought up was you bring the big Nashville sound. That was Tyson's words, the big Nashville sound to rural Nebraska. And we're all very grateful for that. And so one of the things you do is you make a regular trip to Nashville. And so I guess I kind of want to start with, let's rehash a little bit of what you talked about on the podcast with the current scene in Nashville and country music in terms of how people are releasing music and what type of music is being released. So just kind of the highlights of your conversation there.
Yeah, no, and I got to remember because that was 2 weeks ago exactly. But, I mean, Nashville is very eclectic. I mean, they call it Music City. They don't call it Country Music City. And that's an important part because, as you and I have talked about 100 times, what country is to Jeff over here is not the same as what country music is to Jethro over here. The likes are not the same. The sound is not the same. And yet most of it all comes from the same spot. The writers, the musicians, they all flock to Nashville. And Nashville has really struggled in the last 20 years. And a big part of that is all of the music companies, the labels, that's what you always hear us talk about, the record labels and stuff like that. They're about half, there's probably less than half as many labels in 2020 as there was in the year 2000. The reason for that is they all merged. Just like a lot of things, just like all the schools in our area. You got all these big schools, and now they've got the little schools that are part of them as well. And that happened in Music City as well. So what happened when these big record companies were taking in or absorbing the smaller record labels, that meant that a lot of people lost their jobs. So Garth Brooks has been quoted as saying that in the heyday of the 90s when he was making all his music, and Garth was a hell of a writer, but he talks about the songwriters in Nashville and goes, oh, hell, there were 20, 30,000 songwriters in Nashville. I mean, they weren't all bigwig writers, but everybody was a songwriter. And he goes, now that number of songwriters in Nashville is percentage is lower. So you have maybe a handful of songwriters that are writing all the songs that Florida Georgia Line is singing and that Luke Bryan is singing and those guys. So the sound of Nashville has changed because it all sounds the same. And the reason it sounds the same is because there's not as many people writing music, writing songs as there were back in the heyday. So, I mean, the big and the small of it is that's it. The reason that it all has kind of gone to a sound like it has that hip-hop country sound, that's what we call it. That pop country, I guess, is what most people refer to it as. Well, that's who's writing all the songs. And those writers are writing for, 20, 30 different artists that are, that new show on NBC, that Songland, has got two of the biggest songwriters in Nashville on that show. Shane McAnally is one of them. Ashley Gorley is another big songwriter in Nashville. Holy crap, they probably wrote 20 hit songs last year. Just incredible.
Now, on the podcast, when you were interviewed, you mentioned a guy like Luke Combs who had gone to Nashville and didn't meet the expectations of the label. Went on and recorded his own music and released it. So do you see more of that happening as this sound has sort of taken over? Do you see more people sort of stepping away from it? Do you think they'll be successful in doing so, knowing that to break into country music is really hard?
It depends what you want out of it. Do you want to be played on the radio, or do you just want to be streamed? And there's a big difference between being streamed and playing on the radio. The record labels, of course, are greedy, and they want both. They want you to play it on the radio, and they want you to stream it. It's easier than ever, just like we're cutting this podcast right now. There are more podcasts out there than you can shake a stick at. Whatever you want, the topic is you want to listen to, you probably can find it on the podcast store. And pick your poison on the podcast store. There's 100 of those out there, too. Same way in country music. It is easier than ever to cut a song and release it somewhere. Even if it's just an MP3 uploaded and it's on Spotify. Even on iTunes, there is an independent genre on iTunes now. And it's all these artists you've never heard of. And it's all really, really good. part of the problem with Nashville is there's too many great artists, and they're stuck in their ways of the Luke Bryans of the world. We want the next Luke Bryan. They weren't looking for the next Luke Combs. They were looking for the next Luke Bryan. Luke Combs, just to tell that story that you were just alluding to. So Luke Combs came to Nashville, talented. You can look at him and go, not your stereotypical tight, fitting jeans country singer. That's not who Luke Combs is. Luke Combs don't care.
Now, when you say typical, you mean within the last 20 years typical?
Yeah, I would say that. Well, I mean, look at the 80s. Charlie Daniels doesn't.
More.
Yeah, well, guys like Charlie Daniels never get a record deal in 2020. Luke Combs being, right, the statistic that the guy that did. But so Luke Combs, he comes, they basically shoot him down. He takes the same song, the song Hurricane, which was his first big hit. That's the song he pitched all these record labels, and they're like, nah, we're not interested, blah, 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 blah. He goes, he finds a little record label that will pick him up, or at least he can funnel his music through these people, and he puts it out. The little chart that we report our music to, Music Row, which is a legit publication in Nashville, but they look at secondary markets the size of ours here in Nebraska that are not Denver and Atlanta and Kansas City, the smaller stations, and that's who these little smaller record labels try to pitch their music to. So those are the people that call me and they're like, hey, play this song. Luke Combs was one of them 5 years ago. They pitch us the song Hurricane. I'm like, damn, that's a good song. I didn't know what he looked like. Didn't matter to me. That's not what it's about. It's about audio. You're supposed to listen, right? Hurricane starts going up the Music Row chart for these smaller stations, and it is destined. It's going to be a big hit on our stations. I get a call from Lisa Smoot, who is one of my representatives in Nashville, and Lisa says, "Hey, we're asking stations to pull that song." You're asking me to what? This is the best independent song that I'm playing right now. And she couldn't really say why, but you kind of this has happened a few times over the years where a group like it happened to Alabama in the 80s. Alabama, independent artists, they put out Tennessee River. It starts rolling up the charts, and then they put the brakes on that song, and they're like, no, don't play that song anymore. RCA signs Alabama. They re-release the song. It goes straight to number one. And that is exactly what happened for Luke Combs. They pull the song. They said, radio station, stop playing it. He gets signed. They re-release the song, so now this song does go to Denver. It goes to KYGO in Denver and Kansas City and WSIX in Nashville. And now the big stations are playing it, and now Luke Combs has got a number one hit, and the record labels are still scratching their head going, how the hell did this guy, how did this happen? This is, this doesn't fit the mold of what we've made the 2010s about with male country singers. He wasn't singing about a truck. He was wearing a ball cap, so we got to give him that part. But it wasn't the bro country stuff. I mean, it was actual country music. And I think if it did anything, it proved that the listener is not an idiot. The listener knows good music. And Luke Combs is the highest selling country male artist in the format right now. And those record executives where he went the first time and pitched his stuff, I mean, they just got to want to, hide forever that they didn't sign him.
Well, and it's interesting because, as you've mentioned, the demo is, I think that there might be a feeling in Nashville that they want to reach a younger audience.
Totally.
One, do you think they've done that? And two, do you think that they have misjudged the country music audience, the people who listen to country music?
Yes and yes. I think they wanted to hit a younger audience, and yes, I think they misjudged who their audience really was. And honestly, because of that, that's why the Red Dirt and the Texas country caught on fire in the last 10 years. The stuff Nashville was releasing wasn't country. It's pop country. You can tell me till I'm blue in the face that it's not. And then you go listen to Cody Jinks or Cody Johnson or Casey Donahue. Uh, those guys are singing real country songs. And you want to know what happened? People started buying their product. Texas is like, heck with you, Nashville. We're just going to start our own genre of music. We're going to call it Red Dirt, but really it's just real country music. And it's caught on fire. We've had to tweak our formats with our country stations, not so much on Country 96, but with our other ones, we definitely are playing a lot more of those other artists, because who do they sound like? It sounds like an old George Strait song. It sounds like a Garth Brooks song or Clint Black or Alan Jackson. There's a reason country music was so successful in the 90s. And then some bigwig came along and was like, oh, we need to redo this successful blueprint. And they didn't.
Well, and one of the things as you were talking that came to my mind was I think there's a big push amongst millennials, my age group specifically, for authenticity. And I think that probably Nashville did not see that, because I don't feel like a Florida Georgia Line song is very authentic. There are very few, if any, Luke Bryan songs I feel are authentic. They have the blueprint that you mentioned, the pretty girl, the drink, the truck, and so I think subject matter is weighed down the line from meeting this sort of criteria of what was once a big country hit. And I don't know if it was the sound or the words, if it was just these words and phrases test high amongst the certain demo that we're trying to reach. But I think pretty quickly people started to see through that because it wasn't authentic. I don't know. Do you see some of that being the case?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the other thing, as in almost everything, it had to do about money.
Sure.
In the 80s, we were getting our music on cassette tape. In the 90s, we were getting our music on compact discs. In the 2000s, we started to move away from compact discs to MP3s, and in the 2010s and moving into 2020, everything is streamed. Everything is streamed. And because of that, and Garth Brooks talks a lot about this when he's been interviewed on this topic, because of that switch, putting all your eggs into an album, a full 10 to 11 song album, it's not happening anymore. So it's that instant gratification that we're all after, and the music industry is not any different than that. They're like, well, why would we cut 11 songs, 6 of them that are mediocre and that will never release to radio, just to do it? We want it. Streaming is big. Taylor Swift left our format to go to that format. We need to imitate what Taylor Swift is doing, because Taylor Swift had the demo that they wanted, and then she raced off to pop music with it. And I think they thought, they being the industry, that's what people wanted. But definitely the streaming part of the industry, that's changed everything, because you can cut a song today, release it tomorrow, and people can buy it on the next day. It's so fast. And that's something that, in the 80s and the 90s, it was all about a process, and you had to buy the whole album. And that meant that you had more writers that had, to go back to that, you had more writers that were working, that were getting paid. You had more studio musicians to put together a whole album. Now we've gone to the computer stuff. So half the stuff you hear on an album isn't really a guitar, it's computer. I don't know. This is such a deep, it's such a deep hole that country music is in. The good, as we were talking about that, I got to thinking about what people want, and if you had to guess, Alex, who is the best selling country artist ever? You think it's anybody within the last 20 years?
I wouldn't think so. George has got to be up there.
George Strait is number 3, best selling country artist ever. Number 5, Alabama. Number 4, Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers was a crossover artist for sure. 3, George Strait. Number 2 is actually a female. Would you like to take a guess? Best-selling artist of all time in country music in the format. It's a woman, number 2.
Dolly?
Shania Twain.
Shania?
And she was in that age of the compact disc. Everybody had to have it. And think about it, sales again. So you're making a compact. It didn't take a lot of money to go ahead and put that out, but at least you had, 10, 12 songs on a compact disc. You release a single today, it's one and done.
That was also the days of music videos, which made me a Shania Twain fan.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now, the Man I Feel Like a Woman video. And the number 1 selling artist of all time, and it's of all genre, but country music owns him, and that's Garth Brooks, who, and this is an old number, but he broke, He's ahead of Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones at 156.1 million units sold. That's a lot.
Does that include the Chris Gaines album?
I think it does, yes. So
okay.
Of which they sold like 23, and I have 2 of them. So
you're like a majority shareholder of the Chris Gaines album.
Heck yeah, man. It's funny when I was with Garth a couple of years ago, we were backstage in Omaha before a show. That conversation came up. We were just talking about cover albums. And I told Garth, I said, you want to know, my favorite cover album wasn't really a cover album, but it was awesome. I said, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I loved the Chris Gaines album. I said, if you loved Light Rock 70s, how could you not love that album? It was so good. And now you got Dierks Bentley that's basically trying to do the same thing, except for he's trying to be funny about it with his Hot Country Nights, and it's working. So
I think it's interesting to look at the industry in general. Of course, this is not new for Nashville, and we can touch on this a little bit. I mean, there have been artists who have been outside the fray a little bit, who have been picked up. I mean, Randy Travis talks about how he was told that he sounded like old country when he was getting onto the scene in the late 70s, early 80s. And I mentioned to you before the broadcast, Dwight Yoakam too, the Bakersfield sound, things like that. I mean, Nashville has gone through this before of artists being outside of their sphere a little bit.
Yeah, I think it happened. It's just like anything. It's a cycle. It's funny, one guy that won't go away in country music, and you'd have thought, based on a lot of the other artists that came out when Tim McGraw did, that they're not making music anymore. You can name them on one hand, early 90s singers that are still actually putting out new music. Tim McGraw came out with a new song this week. It's really good. Kenny Chesney's still making music. Of course, I remember back when I was in high school when Kenny Chesney and Tim McGraw punched the police officer while they were on a horse. They were the young kids on the block at the time. Toby Keith's not really making any music anymore.
Let's say Toby Keith floats around a little bit.
Yeah, he still tours, but I mean, as far as new music, you're not seeing that from him. Garth basically touring, but not really putting out new music. There's just not many of them, but that's the deal. And you mentioned it. So the Florida Georgia Lines, the Luke Bryans, I'll throw Jason Aldean into that mix as well. In 20 years, will they still be around to the level that we talk about Tim McGraw? I don't think anybody's going to surpass Garth. I just don't think that will ever happen again. Luke Bryan's been around for about 10 years now. Jason Aldean, about the same. It feels like they're at the end of their cycle, though, maybe, for those guys. And that's why Nashville, believe it or not, is kind of coming around to this new sound. I mentioned Cody Johnson, who was a Red Dirt artist. God, they hate it when you call him that, too. We're just music artists. They don't like to be called country. They don't like to be put in that box of anything. But Cody Johnson, who made a lot of money in Texas, has now gone mainstream country. He sounds country. People want to hear it. They're buying his stuff. And the artists are, at the moment, not the artists, but the record labels are really quick right now to want to sign those guys. Parker McCollum's going to be a name that you're going to hear a lot in the next couple of years. We played him a lot on Country 96 and our stations in Nebraska. He's another Red Dirt, Texas guy. He's a young kid, but he sounds country. And I really feel like Nashville, watch it in the next 5 years. You're going to see a lot more of at least the men in country music that are wearing cowboy hats and sound a lot more country. You mentioned that California sound. Throw John Party into that too.
Oh, for sure. And John Party's one of the guys who has sort of led that revival of the sort of classic country sound. And you've mentioned the guys in country music, and I want to get to ladies in country music because I think there's a lot more than what was discussed on the Watchful Penguin podcast. And I want to touch on that. Before we do that, I just kind of want to wrap this up by that discussion. You know, the John Party. Do you think there's room in country music for both sort of the I call it bro country, the pop country, and then sort of the classic sound? Do you think there's room, or do you think, like you said, is it on the end of its life cycle?
I think it's at the end of its life cycle, but yes, I do think there's room for both on Big Country 97.7 and on Coyote Country 105.3, which I program in. That's in McCook. I'm doing that. So it's not, in fact, when I was on the air earlier today, I was talking out of the brand new Florida Georgia Line song and into Casey Donahue. It actually does work, and I think you're able to satisfy a lot of different people and not really tick off a lot of people at the same time. Now, I will admit, a few years ago, you texted me. Of course, it was a remake, and I know how you feel about remakes. But Florida Georgia Line did a version of Alabama's I'm in a Hurry and Don't Know Why. And yeah, if you could see Alex's face right now. Yeah, in hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have played that. But they were trying to pander to people like you and I that like the other kind of music. So, and it was actually pretty good, other than it was Florida Georgia Line.
Stay in your lane, maybe. That might be a stay in your lane type of deal.
Yeah, I think so too. No, I do. I think both can happen at the same time. The one thing that's hard to make it happen, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you slice the pizza. There's only 40 chart positions on a top 40 chart. That doesn't mean that you don't play. I mean, I play about 60 current songs, which is a pretty large playlist. But you start throwing in the Texas music, you go from 40 to 80 in a hurry. And the way I program, I really try hard not to program to the chart. But I do watch the chart a little bit just to see what other stations are doing, things that maybe work here that don't work elsewhere. I've always been programmed under the guidelines of a good song is a good song. So the problem is what I think is a good song and what Alex thinks is a good song aren't always the same thing. So, but I try to look at it that way. I try not to necessarily look at the name in front of the song. Just listen to it. It's usually either good or it's not. And you usually know pretty quickly whether you like it or not.
I want to touch on the topic of ladies in country because you've specifically mentioned several times guys in country. There's been a lot of discussion about play airtime for ladies. You mentioned Taylor Swift as someone who the industry, the Nashville country music industry feels like kind of got away. Where is all of that? I mean, what is the thinking? At one point you mentioned that you can't have ladies back to back, was a rule at one time. It's certainly something that is worth considering because it's sort of it's weird.
Yeah, it's been well documented in Nashville, especially in the last year, of the lack of females in country music at the moment. I don't think you can blame the radio for that. Plenty of people have tried to blame radio stations for that. Look, it still goes back to the record label at the end of the day. If they're not giving us females to play, I can't play them. If the song's not good, I'm not going to play it. And it's a tough deal, though, because, I mean, I have worked for a person that was over me before, and that person's philosophy was don't ever play two females back to back. I never understood why. That person is not over me anymore. I think it was a week or two ago. I think it was on Country 96 in the 8 o'clock hour. And I remember it because I thought to myself, wow. And I didn't do it on purpose. It was just how my computer that I have algorithms and everything else that it pulls from to figure out what today's playlist is going to be based on all the things I tell it to do. I think I played 4 female artists back to back to back to back, and they were great. And for the first time in, I don't remember what the statistic was, just last month, for 2 consecutive weeks, we had number 1 singles by female artists, and it wasn't even the same female artist. Gabby Barrett, that song I Hope, and Ingrid Andress, her big hit here this spring, were both number 1 songs on the big Billboard charts back-to-back weeks, and I think you'd have to go back 10 years since that happened in country music. So it's been a long time. I think country music's on the upswing. I think it's because there was a lot of talk about it. I think there was so much backlash about not playing females. Casey Musgraves made a lot of waves over the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, when she was basically belittling some radio stations that, I think a guy made the comment on Twitter, a programmer, that he wasn't going to play 2 females back to back. And then she's like, yeah, but it's okay to play Luke Bryan and Chase Rice and all these bro country artists back to back to back to back to back that all sound the same. And her point was completely genuine and valid. And I'll be honest, I think that was the comment that kind of swung the industry a little bit. And it's been different. 2020, you can say 2020 will be a year to remember for lots of reasons, obviously. But I think it is the year that females came back into country music. There's some good music out right now. Mara Morris, who's had some great songs, but hasn't had a lot of number 1 songs. I think that'll change now. So, I mean, all of her songs were as good or better than both the Gabby Barrett and the Ingrid Andress, in my opinion. And I think only one of them was a number 1 hit. So,
we put out a question on Facebook about artists and songs that people like. And a lot of 80s, 90s songs. Amarillo by Morning. There is no, in my world, in my view of the world, George is the king. George remains the king. George is the king.
Would you believe that in Rolling Stone, according to Rolling Stone, and say what you want about Rolling Stone, that song doesn't even make the top 15?
I can't think of a better known, and I mean I can rattle off tons of George Strait songs. Is there a better known George Strait song?
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better one. No, I think I'd agree with you on that. Yeah. And I will tell you, on the side, I do mobile DJing. If I need a go-to, like the wedding or the whatever kind of dance it is, if I need a song, a go-to song, that's in my top 3 as far as go-to songs. And if it's country, it's probably my number 1 country go-to song. I can instantly fix or change a dance on that song. I just play it and dance floor is packed. So, yeah.
Beaches of Cheyenne. This is my wife who posted this. Beaches of Cheyenne.
That was a good one, Hillary. Totally.
Not a, I mean, when you think of Garth, it may be top 5. Probably not. It'd be hard, but it's a good Garth song.
Problem with Garth Brooks songs is how do you make a top 5?
That's true. I could make a top 5.
I'm sure you could. I don't know what I would put in my top 5. So,
Digging Up Bones, Forever and Ever. I mean, so Randy Travis is, and we mentioned Randy Travis before. Someone who went to Nashville They didn't like the sound. They said it was too classic country, but got picked up and gained tons and tons of fame despite that.
Guitar Town made the list. Keith Whitley. Turnpike Troubadours, I see making the list. That'd be a Red Dirt band. Eddie Rabbitt, I wrote Love a Rainy Night.
You played a lot of Eddie Rabbitt last Saturday on.
I think I played 2 songs from Eddie. Yeah,
2 or 3. I thought you had one more. I
might have. I don't remember. Yeah.
Wagon Wheel. Wonder which one.
Well, I'll tell you what. Depending on, yeah, I've taken a lot of guff on that topic before. Personally, I actually like the Darius Rucker version better. I am in the minority on that, though.
Darius Rucker is an interesting story, and that he's releasing songs on the countryside as Hootie is really interesting. It's definitely the blues country crossover, which at one point in time was unfathomable, but it's again, I think there's there's room in country music for authentic music, which is I think you can say that about Hootie for sure.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad Darius and Hootie are in the format. Yeah, I don't know why. I honestly don't remember why I've never actually heard the story, I don't think, about why Darius decided to just bring the actual Hootie band back. But as he was touring, he wasn't touring with those guys. I think some of them were in the band here and there, but they didn't ever call it Hootie and the Blowfish unless it was all of them together. And then they put this project out. I was actually at the Ryman Auditorium when they made their comeback. They hadn't even announced it yet. I'm in the front row at the Ryman Auditorium in February 2 years ago. And Darius Rucker usually would sing at that event, and he hadn't sang yet. And I looked over to my wife, who was with me, Carla, and I'm like, I haven't seen Darius Rucker yet. And it was at the end of the show, and Darius usually wasn't the encore. And then they announce, and here it's Hootie and the Blowfish, and they come out and they sing "Hold My Hand" and "Want to Be with You," and that was epic.
It's amazing how time has allowed that to fit in the country genre.
It became a country song. I suppose it was a rock song back in the day. I mean, it wasn't metal, but it wasn't really pop. But that was that weird time in the mid-late 90s when what was rock music even? So, or pop, for that matter. Alanis Morissette was around. What was that? I don't know. So
that blues crossover, because you have like Blues Traveler, who sort of fits that a little bit too, who now probably would be more of a country artist. I mean, obviously not, but again, Hootie did it. So
I love it.
Last song. Do we want to cover the last song?
You can if you want. Kimberly Cooley is the one you're talking about, I think. And Kimberly lives here in North Platte. I hang with her quite a bit. But Kimberly, Alex doesn't like the song that you picked from Dean Brody. And I think I should play part of it, actually. So
go ahead.
Where is it? Here we go.
I like cold beer, yes I do. I like cold beer, how about you? I turn up when I let loose. I can't help myself. Get loud on Friday night. Drop it down in four-wheel drive. Been like this my whole life. I can't help myself. I can't help myself. I can't help myself. Can't blame nobody.
I can't imagine what you didn't like about that song. Honestly, I'm watching you got to watch the video. The video is hilarious, though.
Yeah.
So Dean Brody and the Reclaws. So,
and it's and is there a place for songs like that? Yeah, I mean, you do DJ work. I think that.
Oh, there is.
Tempo does a lot, and you mentioned this about tempo being a big decision on your music choice.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think that song, if I was going to throw that in, and I actually didn't hate it. So, I feel like that's a Friday song. I'm thinking drive time, Friday on your way home, about 5:30 in the afternoon. Crank that puppy up, man. I liked it.
I think that's I think you're right. There's a place for certain songs. Is it high on my list of country songs? Nope. isn't.
It's not. It's not Johnny Cash, and it's not George Strait. So
lyrically, we're not diving into anything great. But is there a place for that? I like cold beer. Yes, I do. It's like honk if you like cookies.
Yeah, it's an anthem. I like beer. How about you? I liked it. So
there you go.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know how long we went. I was thoroughly engaged in this discussion.
I knew you would be, and I think this is one of those that we could have a part 2 eventually, with maybe some more feedback. I feel like I want to get somebody on with us to have this discussion. One of my Nashville friends, maybe. And I got a few that I could actually ask, I think. And actually, since we're on that topic, you mind if I play you one this afternoon that you haven't heard?
Sure.
You know who Nick Hickman is. He is one of the artists that we played a lot. I just
he's one of your artists.
Yeah, I just really love this guy. He's from Georgia. He is a regular. He plays Old Red in Nashville. He was their featured artist of the month at Old Red's Nationwide in, I think, February or March. He's one of them that I actually like to get on the show. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But he released a song earlier today. You may or may not like it. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you can check out his video. He's on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, all those. The Nick Hickman. He plays at Cunningham's Journal all the time. So if you see, well, after this pandemic's over, he'll play there all the time. He was playing there about every other month. I think this kid's going to be one of the ones that's going to make it. I really, truly do. He's a hell of a songwriter. And again, these kids that are writing their own songs, I think that's how Nashville gets out of the funk that they're in, is having these kids write their own songs that mean something to them. And when a song, you know how it is with anything, if something means something to you because it came from you, probably whatever your portrayal of it was is better than somebody else's would have been at the same time. So this is a new song from Nick Hickman. And give a listen to this. If you like beer, this one's called Bottle Away. Play a little bit of this.
I'm sitting here and I'm all alone, staring at a bottle that's almost gone. But every sip I take is another step closer to moving on. I'm gripped tight to a photo frame. That 4x6 is driving me insane. I'ma throw it against the wall, hope that it'll break and ease the pain. It's almost 2 now, still trying to drown you out. I'm working like hell to forget I ever knew your name. I'm 20 minutes from the liquor store. I know they're closed, but I still need more, 'cause I'm almost over you. I'm a bottle away, I'm a bottle away, I'm a bottle.
Yeah, called A Bottle Away. Nick Hickman. You didn't hate that song, did you?
No, lyrically, really good.
It's really, really good. He's got a lyric video, and I want to find out who did the lyric video for him in Nashville. One of the big industries actually in Nashville are these companies that do those lyric videos, and they don't just do them for country either. So these record labels will send them the song, and then these people, that's what they do. In fact, a lot of these artists, that's what they do for their real job. So anyway, I wanted to play you that one. So it's brand new for Nick Hickman. You can find that on his social media pages. Just type in The Nick Hickman. He's supposed to actually play here the next couple of months if those shows happen. So I hope they do. So, but, oh man, it's been a lot of fun today. I like engaging in some of these topics like this. Country music is it's deep. There's so much that you could talk about, and you hit on a lot of it. And one of my favorite part of my job being in radio is that part of my job. I like the sports. I have a great time with the sports, but my passion really has always kind of been the music. And there's a lot of trash out there, and there's a lot of really good music out there. You want to know what? We probably play more of the trash than we do the good stuff, and that's the damn shame. But we're trying to fix that. So, as an industry, I can't do it on my own. So,
Well, a lot of it's, it's all consumer driven. I mean, it's what people want to listen to. The unfortunate part is, I guess, the balance between who chooses what we listen to.
Oh, you just hit the proverbial nail on the head. That's it right there. Who is the person that is choosing and making those decisions at the end of the day? Well, we may talk about that. We will talk about that probably every podcast a little bit, but that'll maybe be as in-depth as we go for a while. I guess it takes us to bold predictions as we start to wrap up the show. Yeah, we're over an hour, so we're at the finish line here, but I'll let you go first. Bold prediction. I did most of the talking, I feel like, today.
My bold prediction is not so bold. I think it's my worst pick for a bold prediction. But Ricky Fowler and Matthew Wolff are one team in the Skins game, and Rory McIlroy and Dustin Johnson, the other team. When this came out, everyone said, "Who the heck is Matthew Wolff?" And is a Oklahoma State, played for Oklahoma State, and kind of an up-and-comer. I'm picking Ricky and Matthew Wolff. I'm picking them in the Skins game.
You heard it here.
That's my bold prediction.
You heard it here first on the Chasing Cars podcast. My bold prediction is Noah Vedral will throw more touchdown passes than Adrian Martinez in 2020.
Oh, damn, that's a good one. God, you kicked my ass this go-round.
Well, we'll see if it happens. I really don't want it to happen. I think Noah Vedral is a diamond in the rough at quarterback, but Nebraska, there was no way he could be number one here. It's a perfect system at Rutgers where he's going. I'm not saying Rutgers is going to win more games than Nebraska, but I think Noah Vedral will do very well there. My two cents.
It's a good pickup for Rutgers. Yeah, it's a good call. God, this was a great show.
It was good, man.
I'm calling it.
It was good.
It's a great show. I learned a lot. We laughed. We cried. Okay, not even. Well, we laughed a little.
I might cry when I go back and listen to what I said.
Well, there you go. You sounded smarter than you are. So,
well, thank God for that. There it is, Chasing Parked Cars. Alex, have a fantastic weekend of watching some golf on Sunday, my friend.
Heck yes.